to either determine if we move forward with candidate A, B, or C, and then based upon that initial interview, move into the background check, provided the proper applications have been signed, and proper information has been disseminated to those applicants, that they understand that there will be an extensive background check, which may inhibit them from being part of the township.
Yes, Michelle.
So Cash, the form that needs to be signed to do the background check, the sheriff's department's gonna handle all that, so we don't even have to have them sign forms.
Right.
So we just say, you're gonna be contacted by someone from the Alpena County Sheriff's Department, and they will have you sign the forms and do the background check.
Correct.
Okay. So basically, our motion just needs to be to start the interview process. Okay.
Some people might eliminate these.
Exactly.
So we have a motion on the table, and that was trustee Lett, to start the interview process.
I will support that.
And we have a support on the table by Clerk Palovich. Further discussion, Laura.
I just had a question, Steve. You mentioned the extensive background check. I thought that's what we were talking about, not having time to do was the extensive, that we were going to do it abbreviated.
Well, even the abbreviated is more extensive.
Okay, I'm just-
Yeah, we'll seek the necessary information that we need as part of this discussion.
Yes.
So there's certain things that I suspect just simply don't need to take place on certain applicants. So it doesn't make sense to run through certain line items that won't be germane to any job description. So we can eliminate a lot of those sorts of things. But I do want to make sure that on the application that the township has, notwithstanding that the county is going to have somebody sign some waiver, because that's going to be for the benefit of the county, probably not for the benefit of the township. And on our application, does it stipulate that we will do background checks and that it may or may not?
Chief,
They're just
curious.
I was prior to your question, but just so the board is aware of the process right now, when they receive an application packet from the township for the fire department, the slips that they're signing are pertain specifically to a driving record and a criminal history record background check from the sheriff department. Those two items only is predominantly. I then take those to the sheriff department, and generally the sheriff's administrative assistant takes care of that right in front of me, makes me aware of the results, and then sure. So it's true. Right now, it consists of the driver record history, and then they do a cursory, criminal background check just to see if there's anything hidden out there. Those are the two things we can.
Is that independent of the application, or is that?
That's part of the process for everyone.
Does somebody sign that they're knowing that they're going to
Yes.
be on MPI
Yes.
and criminal background?
Yes, and actually, to a point, technically, the permission slips that we have them sign and produce and give to us from the sheriff's office. That probably needs to be brought in. It needs to be brought in, especially if really, I mean, if somebody is going into Michelle's office, financial services, it might be more important than in your department. But I think they got to know that it would be brought in this motor vehicle and criminal. Because I think somebody still be.
I can get you guys copies of what is on.
And also, sorry, it may even be a moot point that I know we don't like to operate on presumptions and assumptions, but in the EMS world, to the best of my knowledge, someone that has been convicted of a felony in the state of Michigan is not eligible to hold an EMS license. So by default, if somebody releases us with a current, which I can also background check on the state site, it's in a relationship. And also, they will give us backgrounds if there were even any complaints registered against these people as far as the performance.
So we know that we can get through those sorts of things, so there'd be no point to confirmation for the sheriff's office to have that. So that's why I'm saying we find the bullet points that are important for the department. Look at the max standpoint. Anyway, no sense in belaboring that anymore. I just want to make sure that those applicants who may or may not get hired recognize that they're committing themselves to looking into the background. Because I don't want to have somebody come back and say, you didn't hire me, so I want to sue them for not hiring me. I just want to make sure that the numbers, if we have all the lines filled in.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
Yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward, Chief. The floor is yours. You can put a wedge in that door and turn off your phone if you want it. That door should be open. Ms. Riddle.
Chief Element is not audible on your microphones. I'm wondering if, in the interest of public.
For this, yes.
Thank you so much.
We'll take care of that. And like I said, if you'd like to raise that door open and turn off your phone so it doesn't reverb, yeah. then we're on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my only question for the board is, would you like to proceed first with the questionnaire or with the proposal, and whichever one we do, we want to just take it by bullet point down so we're not crossing back and forth.
Well, and at this point in time with some of the shift of staffing and one option being off the table, I think at this point in time, I think we can kind of get to the brass tacks as chief of what is the plan moving forward? From your standpoint as the department head and the chief of this department, how would you like to proceed?
Not to be redundant, but everybody's aware we do need expeditiously move forward with the hiring process, which we're all agreed to. So the next point, in fact, is come December 21st and 27th, we're going to be faced with, I would call it, the staffing problem. So my problem will be the gap in between mid-December and when we can start bringing other people on board. The first most logical thing I can suggest to the board is being that short on personnel. There is one option that we have already spoke of as far as manning, and that was shutting down to not manning the South Station perhaps. And you can do what you can do. I have good conscience. We want to leave that as the very last resort. That obviously was a huge concern for the public. So in the interim, I did offer before, and it's the board's pleasure to proceed, that I've spoke with the officers individually at this point as far as the question of firefighter Galloway, and I haven't received a negative comeback as far as him not being ready. We all agree, given his age and time in the department here, he is an experience. That's not a question. Some of the rebuttals to that, however, that came back to me was, we've had many people in the past we've hired in their early 20s with very little experience other than paid on call experience that have ended up working out fine. And at this point in time, as the chief officer, I realize there may be some concerns on the board that I'd like, I'll address that. I would suggest offering firefighter Galloway a position. He has worked for us for more than 2 years.
As a volunteer?
As a volunteer, he worked for this period of this summer. He worked at the Frederick Fire Department full-time over near Grayling. Their department is much like us. They have some career staff and some they have a seasonal staffing where they cover the memory range and the base over there. He worked full-time for them, so he does have a bit of experience there. He received some excellent training. In the interim, since he's come back, I do want the board to know that the officers, they have not in any way, shape, or form let him rest on his heels. And he's been coming in daily to do what we would refer to as competencies. And that's where a senior officer will take him through and give him a scenario and say, okay, now I want you to pull a truck up, put it up here, pull, we just want to make sure that the very basic that's been done. And I feel recommending him for that.
So Chief,
It seems to me 3 or 4 months ago, we talked and you felt he wasn't ready.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what has changed. But the Frederick Fire Department, have we called and spoken to?
Chief Pratt?
Yes.
I can certainly do that.
I mean, I feel like we need to contact to get a reference and see how he was there and.
well, I think this vein of conversation can be one more application in the interview process.
That's not only.
And I think, it definitely should be. But I think what we need to know is what is the plan with this immediacy of a need, God bless. With our known shortcomings of staffing, what is the best way from your position to staff to run this department with said shortfalls? We can talk about hiring. We already know that we have to run that concurrent no matter what. But in the meantime, what is a plan? And yes, Trustee Paul.
And if we can't staff it, what do we do next?
Right, well, if it be a little more blunt, if you want to call it phase 1, I'll tell you what's changed, Michelle, and that was obvious from last night, is then I had 5 officers, now I have 2. And something has to be done, and to avoid making it sound like a last-ditch effort. Kevin, I don't want you guys to miss the point that Kevin has been in our employment for 2 years, which I think is a fair amount of time to evaluate an employee. To the point of his inexperience is the IC part of that, and my recommendation would be is I would, pending board approval, I'm willing, and whatever 2 remaining officers are willing to work with Kevin on shift as we would in a normal situation when we brought somebody on board. We give them like a 2-week period to break in and make sure that they feel comfortable in that position. I remember when we had this situation with Lieutenant Ortway, I offered to mentor in the same way as did the other officers. That would require me to pick up some more hours, but that. To me, that's a new point right now. But that is one point to solve this. I'm going to have a very immediate staffing problem.
Exactly.
And that's why I recommend bringing Kevin on quickly. And the caveat to that is, my apologies to people that hate the term past practice, but it always has been the practice of this department to hire from within first. And if you can fill that position from within first, then go outside. That's the other prop up to that I would give to Kevin. The bad side of that is we're still an officer short. And again, it's something for the board to consider. I work a 40-hour shift right now. I certainly am willing to step into one of those positions on a 24-hour basis. Now that brings up another vein conversation, such as what would you do with my status, my rank, what type of administrative duty you want me to do. So that's my first point is let's get at least two of those as quick as possible, so we don't feel that initial staffing shock at the end of December. That would bring us, still, the fact is, that would bring us to a minimum staffing of 4 officers, which still be too short, which would be my urgency in continuing with the hiring process. From a standpoint of staffing stations, all I can give you is I know my guys well enough that if we present them with a staffing problem, barring budgetary constraints on payroll, they're willing to step in and fill as many shifts as they possibly can, which I know will lead to one of the questions on here was how can they do that and do it safely. So, but that's my first one. Let's, if we can, and if the board's willing, would we back up 2 of those positions, one with Kevin, one with myself, and then continue the hiring process for the other 2. My apologies for the mask.
So to that end, Chief, that was one of the discussions that we sat and discussed at the personnel committee when you brought forward a recommendation. What, if anything, because we did reach out to Captain Piper, who's the chair of the bargaining unit.
Correct.
Because what the 2 options that you just discussed would actually take with our union contract would have to have a letter of understanding, and to which we do not have that mechanism afforded. Those 2 options at this point in time. So it's not as clean and simple as just moving forward with backfilling yourself and Mr. Galloway. We have to have the letter of understanding to allow that. So we've already started that conversation. We just have not heard the direction. Okay. Unless you have anything to fill in above and beyond what we as a board want.
Well, I think the third option I just heard was overtime possible and accepted. But is that what you're saying in terms of?
Yeah, my I was optimistic as I would like to be. I think there's a simple fact is that we can't staff 2 stations with 2 officers and myself. I would need at least 1 other, and that would include the possibility of not manning the South Station, which I still, and if that comes to fruition, my offer would be at a minimum. If you didn't want to modify my hours, because I live blocks away, I would rotate 3 of the officers through the North Station to make sure that was covered. And myself, I would cover the South Side as many hours as humanly possible. But again, that's still going to leave a gap at the South Side, because I can't do that indefinitely. So,
Yes, look.
I don't know if this, and I'm just throwing this out there, not trying to be disrespectful by any means, but just to help solve the problem. So the way I understand it, with the union contract, you are not able to go out on calls because you're the chief, correct?
No, that's not.
No.
He can't run a 24-hour
Can't,
shift.
yeah.
Okay,
He can't
so,
do a 24-hour.
okay, so you can't do a 24-hour shift because of the union contract.
Right, and not to speak for them, but because of my background, having been a union officer and president in other locals with the IAFF, I believe the impetus behind that is for them to keep union shop. What that may include, and that's why I threw that out, is me stepping away from the chief position and actually becoming a 24-hour employee as the officers would, so as not to usurp the contract. But again, at every question, and I'll have an answer, and I'll bring up some more questions. But that's my officer, and not to blow sunshine with you guys, but I gotta tell you, my guys are telling me, say, what do we got to do, to keep this running? But understandably, so I will have contact with Captain Piper today and see if we can.
I think that would be a discussion that needs to take place in that regard.
But it definitely would have to be.
But no temporary exceptions to
Well, and
union rules that wouldn't allow for in the extreme situations that we're in to deviate a little bit from the contract.
well, and I think that we're faced in that position currently. So there again, I mean, we can have our labor attorney ensure we're operating in good faith. I mean, first and foremost, under an emergency scenario that we're looking at. Yeah. Yes, Trustee Paul.
Since we've got two more officers, firefighters leave, we have Captain Piper and Stevens. What if one or both of those gentlemen decide to leave?
We'll have to replace them if we're moving forward. I mean, unless, again, I don't mean any disrespect, I'm just being quite honest, unless it's the intent of the board, which I don't feel it is at this point, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I would like shut down or reconfigure the department in some manner from its current standing. I hate to be a bullhead that everything goes back to those positions are open. We need to backfill them. But again, given I think we're all on the same page with, I certainly, I heard rumor one, but I didn't certainly expect to be hit with one resignation of two retirements within weeks of each other. So,
well, and
my
that's kind
simple
of
answer to you would be is we'll have to do as we can do. And that, again, going back to union contract, I did gather, just so you guys know where we're at from the fire department side, when I gathered them last week together, officers and paid-on calls together, the consensus I got back from them as a whole and as a group is, yeah, we know this doesn't look good, but from the paid-on call contingent, their answer was, we can't do this without the full-time. And the full-time echoed that back at me, and they said, look, we take a run of it, but the way this department is structured, we can't do it without the paid-on call. We need both. So I guess where I'm going with this is that we were looking at going back to a paid on-call department. I think that's going to raise as many hackles and eyebrows as the merger question did, because it leaves us right back to where we're leaving stations unmanned.
well, and as you stated, the unmanning of Southside would be the absolute worst case scenario in this discussion. So then if that's a worst case scenario, what other scenarios do we need to discuss as options in the interim? Because if unmanning south side, which I agree is last castle kind of a scenario. What other mechanisms, because affording this a gratuitous amount of overtime is part of the discussion that we started with. So what other options are on the table to be discussed? I guess that's what I think we need to know. Because we discussed the potentials of, within your hand, dropping of the licensure, the option of the potential, and these are all options, dropping licensure, stopping the non-emergency transfer business. What are, because in your handout, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
looking
my
at it.
apologies for, I was a little bit on to so cheery up there. If you guys did read the packets, one of the options I presented was in lieu of the question of the non-emergency transfer service, and a quick answer to that is, and we spoke about that the other day in the room, was if that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room that's kind of holding this thing up, and not to be redundant, we'd like to keep it if possible, but I think we're at a point where that's looking pretty slim. So one of the options I offered was to go to BLS. Well, there's three options there. One is to stay as we are, which was happening, it's going to be very difficult. Then the next one down will be to drop to a basic life support non-transport level of licensure. And according to Lansing, what that would afford us is right now, by license status, we're required, because we have ambulance and are considered transporting even from the non-urgent side. If we roll on our first call, when we roll, we have to staff that ambulance with 2 people. By dropping to a non-transport license, that would no longer be required. We could maintain a BLS license on our engines, and the gravel units that we added, we would no longer be required to send 2 people out with every one. We would only be required to send out the 1 BLS licensed personnel. That's
So this is on medical call.
This is on medical.
So on every medical call, we would send 1 BLS, and the city would automatically send paramedics too, because it's
Yes.
a medical call.
Yes.
So, okay. So the only difference on a medical call would be they would be getting 1 from the township, still getting 2 from the city.
Well, and don't, not to, so people are getting throw the baby out with the bathwater situation. I don't want you to imagine that we're automatically going to only be sent. That would be 1 person from the station. The paid-on calls that are licensed as medical first responders and basic EMTs still have the ability to respond from their home.
So we would be emptying the stations. Like if Northside got a call,
Correct.
Southside would still,
Correct.
their van would stay there and we wouldn't.
Right now, I have 1 guy north and 1 guy south, and it's a BLS call. If nobody calls in the room after the page, the paid-on call does not call in the room after the page, then that means the south or second station has to empty and go a system, which means going across town, dropping the BLS non-transport would.
And then how often in that instance do we have an abandoned station because of our licensure in the medical?
2 abandoned.
Well, technically, yes, both stations
Yeah.
that would be abandoned. How frequently does that happen?
Predominantly, we usually only see that happening on late night, early morning calls, which would be after midnight, probably before 6 in the morning.
Is it
Yeah.
daily, weekly, monthly?
Well, depending on how, but I would say probably about every other day we experience a run in the late morning where we would have to do that. So, Now, I also put on there, not to jump ahead, just so you can digest that, I put on there a column under, if we were to drop BLS non-transport and just go all the way to a medical first response. My worry was that if we went to a medical first response, we would lose 2 or 3 key diagnostic abilities that we have as BLS, and I listed them on there. One is the monitor, where we can test people's blood sugar. Another one is right now at BLS level, we are allowed to carry EpiPens for people that are experiencing some type of anaphylactic shock. And airways. Right now, it's basic life support. There are 2 airways on the market. One is a County 2, one is a King, called a King, or iGel, I'm sorry. An iGel and basic EMTs are allowed to insert those airways in an emergency situation. A medical license is not needed. I was under the impression that we would lose those. I called Eric Forey down in Lansing, who regulates EMS for us, and he did say that if we were to approach Northeastern Medical Control Authority, if Dr. Boogie was comfortable with our training standards, he could give permission for us to still carry that equipment and use it at a medical first response level. However, we would need this permission, and I haven't secured that yet. But that's a possibility. So, yes.
My other question is, what BLS non-transport can do inspections, MFR can't? What do
that means being inspected by the state. For example, the today is the state is going to do an annual licensure inspection.
Okay.
Under BLS transport, BLS non-transport, we're required to be inspected once a year by the state of Michigan and apply for a license. If we drop to the MFR level, we're no longer required to be inspected.
Is the inspection cost the same for BLS transporting as BLS non-transporting?
Technicality, the inspections are part of the state's function. However, we do have to apply for licensure.
Okay.
And I believe the price right now for licensure for either BLS is $250.
Okay.
Plus, I believe, $25 per unit, $50 per unit.
So by unit, do we mean by ambulance?
Yeah, apparatus.
And flight record doesn't count as a.
No, it does. I actually, two of our engines are licensed as BLS.
Okay.
So.
Help me understand something.
Yes, sir.
BLS transporting and BLS non-transport. What is the distinction?
Well, it says BLS transport service traditionally would be someone that's looked after, Mr. and Mrs. Smith's got chest pain. BLS unit, it's going to show up, and by some way, shape, or form, are going to be the ones that end up transporting to the hospital or initiating transport. Under the tiered system we operate on, even if we did that, we most certainly would be bound for intercept from the city.
Right. So that's
we don't because of the impetus behind the contract the city has with the county. The city is always going to send a paramedic unit to transport. The only reason we as an entity got the BLS transport is so that we legally could transport, say, between not a lodge in the hospital in based on Harrisville, or pick somebody up at their home and take them to a clinic for treatment. We did need the BLS transport.
That would be a
So basically
the non-medical transport. Doesn't just be the transport because somebody's got to go from that lodge to the hospital or back.
you still need BLS transport for that, even though you're not doing it in an emergency situation.
That's what I'm getting at. And so there can be situations, extreme situations, where there may be a multiple car crash in which many people are injured. we could, under certain circumstances, probably be in the transporting of those perhaps not as critically injured people to the hospital or something like that, in an extreme situation.
Well, correct, and actually, it's very, very infrequent that we got something that once or twice in the.
Yeah, I'm sure that every,
We were at a scene where, you know, for instance, the one that I recall in particular, the city rigs that were up and running at that point in time were all tied up on other calls. So,
yeah.
We, you know, let the hospital know about that. Go ahead, and we initiated transport.
So I understand. So then the BLS non-transport, that's just rolling an ambulance to a site and just sort of being there.
It doesn't have to be an ambulance.
Or it could be anybody.
Well,
If there's somebody within our licensure.
Right.
And so, all right, okay.
Somebody is suburban day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. And so with that, I'm just trying to piece this together a little bit because I've always had a little bit of confusion. You brought up the non-medical transport, and certainly we've heard from people on Facebook about how profitable it is, and I wish I knew what information they had because we just simply don't have that information. And so I'm trying to get to a place where it doesn't seem very reasonable that under the MFR, that we would, in effect, put up for sale our brand new ambulances and our expensive airlift, Stryker lifts. And it just doesn't seem reasonable to me, particularly if we don't even know what the revenues and or expense streams are. What ultimately became apparently one of the major reasons to acquire those pieces of equipment. And so I'm certainly not willing to step dramatically backwards. Clearly, the people out in the community spoke loudly about that, and so we have to run that through until we can establish whether or not that is a reasonable thing for us to do. I don't think it's within our mission, but at the same time, we're so far into it that it doesn't make any sense to me to just pull the plug on it and park them and really not know. I've been trying for months to analyze this, and I just haven't gotten to a place where we can reasonably analyze whether or not BLS licensure or MFR licensure is reasonable. And so I know that we're trying to get that information. We've got the majority of that information, but we're still speculating on some of that stuff. And so until such time as we've had some third party analyze those revenues, charge off, costs, etc., we won't be in a position to know whether or not that makes any sense to us. So from that standpoint, I certainly don't have any interest, certainly right now, of putting ourselves in a position where we're just going to get criticized more for not having enough information to make an informed decision on any of these things.
Well, Trustee Foley actually has.
You know, I'm still concerned, Chief, that just thinking about this, if everything went good, probably the soonest we could get somebody in here, actually as a hiree, is a month, maybe longer. If we go through the process and 2 weeks of interviews and whatever, they're going to have to notify their employer where they're at. There's another 2 weeks, and there's always something else that comes up. So I'm going to say a month. We got people that are leaving on the 27th and the 21st, I believe. That gets us down to two people, 3 with yourself. I still haven't heard anything of how that's going to happen after those dates that our constituents are going to be taken care of. I haven't heard nothing about asking any other municipality or anybody, can you support us, help us, contacted, has anything been done? after the 27th, and we haven't hired any, which maybe we're in the process, but that isn't going to happen. Where do we go? What does the state say? What are we allowed to do as a fire department? Are we safely taking care of our constituents? I haven't heard any of that. Am I wrong that I'm sorry. Was there something said that I didn't hear?
Not as of yet. And I think that's part of the discussion of we're putting everything.
Well, I think that's where we're at. We have an immediate risk that we have to take care of, and we have to have a long-term plan as well. But at this point, with two people, we have contract issues no matter what we do. We can't even think about doing transports because we can't even man one station. So where do we go with this thing? We have to go back to the basics. And even that is going to create issues. But I don't know where else you go because you don't have any staff. And Norm, I think, is right. You're realistic. You don't have one. And we don't have one. So we have to man one station, do something. We have to do something.
I have 2 or 3 questions. One and an observation. I think that the OS has got to stop it. All due respect to Trustee Ryan. Because BLS improves, and has improved long distance, not just to Meadow Lodge or one of the nursing homes to the hospital, it's included long distances.
You mean non-medical transport?
Non-medical BLS transport.
Yeah, the long distance transports were halted on April.
I thought they were reinstated.
No, we had a period of time, Mr. Rainer, where we stopped, a 2-month period where we stopped all transports altogether because of the COVID, and we had at the beginning of the staffing issues.
You got more COVID issues going on right now than.
Yeah, they certainly haven't gone away. So at that point in time, we drew back from any non-road transports, be it long distance or local, with the exception of 3 established locations.
We had heard in a call on Monday, there's 24 people hospitalized for COVID here locally and 4 on death. So now, how many of the 8 people, and I'm not asking for names or anything or what order they're in, but how many of the 8 people you talked about taking from within, that you have applications for full time, are paid on call now?
One,
Just Mr. Galloway.
Mr. Galloway. Yeah.
Have you posted anywhere that there's openings? What is the procedure to try to hire from there? Sorry.
In the past, it's prior to myself and having me here, is they would be posted for several weeks internally. And if they didn't receive any application, then they would go outside. And back in the day, of course, when this department was much larger, there were usually 4 or 5 people in waiting to take one of those full-time jobs. New day. We no longer have that contingent of paid on calls that are, they're not qualified in or, and this matter is a fact, so it's not a claim or anything, but quite frankly, I have a number of paid on calls that are simply not going to give up their day jobs that pay much better than would come here. And that's just a fact of life. And I think that's reflected, if you guys truly have been listening to Chief Forbush, this is a state and nation-wide hiring epidemic, not just peculiar to our area. So,
Chief Michelle actually had a video.
I'll deal with it.
My thoughts are, with the lack of manpower, we don't have the manpower to do the non-emergency transfers at this point. We also don't have the manpower to send 2 responders for every medical call at this time.
Okay.
Right, I just feel we don't have that manpower, and I think maybe in 6 months, maybe we will. I don't know, I can't predict the future. Could we go down to a BLS non-transport at this time and cut out our transports, send only 1 responder to medical calls, and then Because even if we hire people, we know it's 6 months to a year before anybody is at full, yeah, if that. And then maybe in 6 months to a year, depending on how our staffing is, their capabilities, where we're at, go, okay, we do get our report and it, let's say it does give us shining news that this is a good thing, you need to be doing transfers. Do we have to wait a year to get back into doing transfers, or can we call the state and go, we'd like to change our licensure?
So, I want to try to remember Mr. Foley's point and come back to that. But if you guys have had a chance to peruse what I put on the table and to cut out a lot of other, I don't want to call it discussion, that repetitive, is if the board is looking for a recommendation from me right now, that would be one. I think our best option as far as the EMS license is concerned is to move to BLS non-transport. And my reason is this: we would continue to get the same level of first responder care to the community, but it wouldn't require as much manpower. We certainly have manpower issue right now. We maintain that level of licensure so that when they get there, they can still perform functions that have become expected of them. My impetus behind that is also to address currently, I'm a little bit more conservative than Supervisor Skibby. I'm calling clearly probably between 45 and 50% of our total call volume are non-urban transfers. If we drop those, then certainly our call volume is going to drop by that same percentage, which is going to be reflected across the board in manpower hours, in maintenance costs, fuel costs, et cetera. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, I'm kind of calculating those. I think that would be our best safest bet would be to drop to BLS non-transport. And the other one is as soon as the union issues can be decided, I don't go right back in hammer. We've got a two-person immediate problem right now, and I say if we can get you to agree, plug Captain and I in. So we can do that as soon as possible, so that by the first of the year we're on a clean slate as far as manpower, and then again we have to continue that hiring process. But that's my recommendation. And if you guys want to kind of pick that apart, fine. But as far as going BLS non-transport, if we get to a point where, if from a fiduciary standpoint, it's seen that once we get back up to staffing levels, we can continue that, get back into it. It's simply a matter of calling Derek at the state and saying we would like to change our status from BLS non-transport to BLS transport. So get on the phone, the inspector will come over, inspect our ambulances, and it's that quick. So we step it right back up.
So we have to pay our fees again?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to hit it. I'm not sure to repeat myself, I told you guys they're coming tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I didn't get that.
No, the state inspect, and that's one reason we
You said it was a state inspection, but I didn't know it was.
Yeah,
In this.
tomorrow, so I'd like to give him our lead license at the same level of the lead drop non-transport. And that's certainly, I think.
How long was it for, a year?
1 year.
1 year. So Trustee Reiner, to follow up and solidify your comment, I believe you had one comment.
Well, the other comment I had was the question, again, and most of you may know this, is can we, with our present union contract, or with the negotiated changes necessary, quickly negotiate, could we put Mr. Galloway on as a temporary non-permanent hire until he completes the same process we're gonna ask everybody else to go through. Background check, and all of the other things, because I don't think it's fair to bring him on after we establish a policy here that we think is the appropriate one to do those kinds of checks. So I don't think we start precedent of sidestepping that policy after we make it. It's a non-policy. So that's what I'd like to know. And I don't know if you can answer that, or our union guy has to get involved.
We'll get an answer immediately following this meeting, trustee Crowe.
Well, and that's another issue that we brought up this week that we discussed is, nobody's gonna meet the criteria, right? The officer criteria coming in the door.
I believe there were 2 of them that already have the officer criteria, but yeah, the rest will be required to complete their fire officer 1 and 2 within a 2-year period after being hired.
So that is one issue we're gonna have to address, because our structure does not allow us to hire somebody that's at a basic level, whereas I know we talked about this, maybe having sergeants or firefighters. We maybe need to restructure how we are, how our structure is in the department, because there's no way for somebody to come out as a firefighter, just be a firefighter and then work your way up. You gotta come right into an officer position, right? Am I saying that right? Yeah, so, I mean, the bar is much higher right off the gate. That's something that we need to address, not something.
I agree with that.
And I did have a third question. So we have these agreements with other agencies, including the city, of what do you call it? Mutual aid. So does that cost us money? No. And number 2 is, are they going to be willing to provide mutual aid because we're short-staffed and provide us coverage with our officer at least being command on scene?
Well, I can't speak for other chiefs, but my understanding of the mutual aid agreement is it's, for lack of better term, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. In other words, anything we agree to that's within the realm of mutual aid, we would say for this southerly calls, we would expect, when we do on a limited basis, for instance, if we were to tone out a page today that to Sanborn and saying, look, our NEQ is out of service for repair. Alpena Township would like you to cover the calls to Suave. And that's just a take, and that will be done. However, the same, going back, if they were to go out of service for some reason and ask us to cover the Nicholson Hill or wherever, we would be holding to do that. And that's why they call it, of course, mutual aid is we can't help us, we can now.
I get that. Right now, I'm saying they're only going to are able to send 1 person to a fire station. And that person, and Alpena Fire Department shows up with 6, 8 people. Are they going to allow our officer to be incident man in that situation?
That's the way it works, is, and for one thing, even with 1 person on station, if we get, well, for instance, this morning with Maple Ridge, we actually gathering, there was a fire call on Maple Ridge for possible structure fire. And we responded with 4 people, even though 1 was on duty.
So one of the data involved.
Yeah, we ended up with 4 people out there. So they know they're not getting this 1 person in the truck, they're getting whatever, paid out how digital do. And the other thing is the understanding is, what's in our jurisdiction is our jurisdiction. So, for instance, when the city fire calls for a mutual aid, like for example, Alice, if we show up with, doesn't matter if we show up with 3 guys or 13, our guys are expected to be under the command of the Alpena Township officer, who will then report to, the example of General Alice, like standards, was incident commander there that day. My guy wouldn't mind. He said, what do you need? He said, well, 3 guys got on the sector, 2 guys up on the road, and my officer would take care of that. So, but to my knowledge, there, I haven't perceived a problem with something going on immediately in a city officer, we're turning 3 of our guys and say, hey, we need that person go in right now. They're not going to refuse that. They're instant manner where we want us to back and go ahead. So just so we know things that we try to avoid that at all costs, use and like that. So the same thing with Maple Ridge. We showed up on many scenes where we get the same time, later first. My guys will show up to Jimmy Price, who's out there right now. Unless they're not there, we'll start fire attacks as soon as one of their officers shows up. Like, okay, this is what we've done with your fire.
So outside the scope of just the mutual aid, we did have, I asked that exact question of the temp fire for Galloway for the IAFF. We will need an LOA with the union and a letter of his confirmed understanding of conditional hire, and probably clearance from insurance counsel. So that would be something that would have to, those would be the parameters therein of the temporary one piece of the car. Are there any other, because I don't want to get too far into the weeds with these.
I want to try to look downstream a little bit. I don't disagree with your recommendation, but I am concerned if I look down the road a little bit. Quite frankly, I'm suspicious of a couple of the retirements, and I wish I knew more about that. But it is what it is. I'm not going to change that. So we go down the road of BLS non-transport. Can you give me an idea of those persons that would historically do those non-medical transports as to what financial gain is in it for those persons? Just as a general count, do they get X number of dollars per run? Do they, Michelle, maybe you have that information. And so
They are full-time employees that do the non-emergency transfers.
Only full time.
No,
Okay, so
but the
there's no,
full-timers who do it, they always get paid overtime, time and a half.
so a paid on call
A paid on-
person does not do.
They do.
They don't, they have first right of refusal, union
Right.
contract. So that's one. So.
All right. All right, so those people that, so effectively, they're paid to be there, but if they go on a non-medical transport run, they get not only paid to be here, but they get paid again.
No, they can't do the non-emergency transfers if they're on their regular shift, if I understand you
Okay.
correctly.
All right, so maybe my question is not point. So those people that, if we took your recommendation, there won't be paid on call people that will be impacted financially.
They will,
They will.
because they won't be doing non-emergency transfers.
Okay, but that's only if the full-time people didn't take the opportunity.
Right.
So do we have any idea of how much money people would earn on that would be paid on
I
call?
do have a list of all the employees from the fire department and what they received for these non-emergency transfers for the last fiscal year.
Give me some numbers.
Can I just make a comment too? And is it true that if a full-timer is not working and they're home, they get first right of refusal to go out on the call, right? And if they've already met the.
On a scheduled call, yeah.
And then if they already have their hours, then that's when the time and a half comes into play.
No, they always get time and a half because they get paid their regular hours.
Okay, so they always, so
Yeah.
first right of refusal, they automatically.
Automatically get
And just real quick, so you got a picture of how it happens on that side. If say, okay, name Bruce Honeycutt is there, by himself, and a call comes in from the hospital, that says to be taking that emergency transfer from, third floor to Medlock Green. He will get what patient information, because we actually have a checklist. We have to go and make sure that patient meets transport criteria so that we know where we get paid. They'll get that information and they'll say, give me your callback number, I'll probably have to 5 minutes. He then gets on the call list and with full-time meeting first.
Yeah, I understand that. I get that. I'm certainly hopeful that somebody would, manually put themselves in, truck it.
And the 2 different ways to pay that calls get paid. There's a call-in pay, by which we have a structure that depending on their experience and licensure level is anywhere between 10 and $13 an hour. If they're at the top of the tip, they'll get $13 an hour for that call-in pay. However, if they are qualified to come in and work an 8-hour shift, then they're getting paid $10 an hour. Am I correct, Michelle? For the 8-hour shift.
I am not aware of that. I know that,
The standing rate annual right now, I think it's $10 an hour.
if they were getting paid
I'm getting a little deeper than I want to get in.
Okay, but Steve, you wanted to kind of have just a general idea. For the last fiscal year, the 2 part-timers who did non-emergency transfers, the 2 highest paid ones for just non-emergency transfers, one made $4,168 and the other made $4,300.
Okay, so then I just wondered if we discontinue that, are we setting ourselves up for other people to say, well, heck, I'm not going to get paid, I'm out of it. So it doesn't, I guess maybe that's not as big an issue in my brain now that I know that. So
I do have another question about that. So if we don't have the non-emergency transfers because of staffing issue as of right now, does that eliminate that 8-hour shift?
Pretty much, yeah. Because the whole reason behind the irregular, what we call the irregular dates, was to make sure that during the busiest hours of the day, when we were most likely to get a transfer call, we had a person on station so the officer didn't have to go back.
So the
through
purpose
list.
of the 8-hour shift was for non-emergency transfers?
Yes.
Okay.
Because prior to this board's timing, when I first came in here, they were at a point where they were getting, 7, 8 calls a day for non-emergent transports. And it didn't make sense to just constantly, every hour get back on the phone. So that at that point in time, I believe they had 4 to 6 people that they even qualified. And the reason they wanted them qualified is what they wanted is that person was going to be here for 8 hours. They felt that there may be a need for them to jump on the truck. And they wanted to make sure, so the people had to qualify where they had to show us they were competent to operate the truck, either without the officer present, so that we could set them on a fire call immediately if needed. So that's the back.
So from a revenue perspective, not looking at it from any other point of view at this particular point in time, but from revenue, 40 to 45% of our time will essentially be eliminated based upon the comment that you made. So those non-emergent medical transports, according to what you said, represent 40 to 45% of the runs.
Yeah, and we did, supervisor and I actually had a discussion where the pie chart produced, I think, a year or 2 ago, actually, we tweaked a little bit right now because it could be above 50%.
All right, so let's say 50%, at that particular point in time, not that 5% is a big deal. But we have a lot of expense just in the rolling of those units. How much costs a roller mile? So we're going to essentially eliminate 40 to 45% of our expense by just going to BLS non-transport for the time being anyway. And still retain basically services. That is to say, our primary objective. That makes sense to me.
Trustee Reiner, you got
I have one more question on this, and then I'd like to make a motion to get this off the line. 2 questions, I guess. Is our next meeting the 28th
on the books it is, although I do forecast the ability, since we have a full board, to set forth a date between the 28th and the day.
Okay. The other question is as to, you just said that somebody asked a question, and you said that the off-duty full-time employees have first right of refusal for a BLS training.
Yes.
I think that's up, my motion is probably going to take that off the table right now, but the point is this, is that part of the union contract?
Yes.
How that goes?
Yes.
We did ask in April.
We did, please say that.
In April, we did, I think Nathan and the chief went to the union and asked them to waive that, if we were going to do a letter of understanding, I think. And the union said no, they will not waive their right of first refusal.
And that contract goes to what?
Well, right now, we have a 6-month extension on the existing contract.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that, with the following parameters, that Kevin Galloway, he hired as a temporary, full-time, and we don't have a classification as firefighter. Temporary, full-time, whatever he would be, officer of our fire department, with the understanding that, subject to background check and actually, the discussion of this board and the chief, terminate that relationship, that was made permanent, but given a permanent offer. And secondly, that we seek our labor council advice on all of this, including the use of, you said, yourself and one other. That was Kevin. Oh, that was Kevin, okay. To be able to do this coverage, because you have to change his status with the union. Is that what you have to do?
Well, he's Kevin, not a member of the union. Okay, I call. So, and again, I would refer to that as Liz stuff. So,
Okay.
but my understanding is that we offer him a position.
Once he's made a permanent position, you automatically have to be a member of the union or.
Well, that's a good question. What the regular work on, but he would be expected to join the union, and if not, at least service.
Right. So,
Traditionally, firefighters desire.
you understand the motion? Is it taken?
Well, yeah.
Actually, no, I don't.
So to that, to your then, with your formation of the motion, trustee Renner, is it'd be a conditional hire once we receive an LOA from the union and a letter from Mr. Galloway that he has confirmed that this is a conditional hire.
Yes. That's good. You got to go through the interview process too.
It's still going to have to.
Are we addressing the licensure issue?
Well, I mean, we have one motion that's coming on the table. So to that motion, do you have clarification?
I just want to clarify the motion for the
Yeah,
minute.
I'm not addressing BLS, is that what you mean? Yeah, I'm not addressing that yet.
So it would be to temporary hire Kevin Galloway as a full-time officer with understanding that it's conditional employment, subject to
LOA with union.
LOA, letter of understanding with union, and an additional letter.
And a confirmed understanding letter.
And a confirmed understanding letter.
Could you read the motion back, please?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure,
To hire Kevin Galloway as a temporary full-time officer with understanding that it is conditional employment subject to a letter of understanding with union and a confirmed understanding letter.
No need
from Mr. Galloway.
no need for additional background information.
Well, I think at this point in time, he would still be in the pool, and that's where the subsequent question. So right now, we have a motion on the table. Is it clear what the motion is as presented?
What is the end part, to confirm under?
If Mr. Galloway needs to confirm by letter,
Yes.
is prerequisite is conditional.
Yeah, so they'll need an LOA from the union. He will have to sign a letter of confirmation that this is a conditional hire as we continue to progress.
I just want to comment.
We still have the motion on the table.
Yeah, that's fine.
This was clarification for the motion. I thought Russ talked also about the chief in that motion.
Oh, I did, let's do that in a separate one.
So we have a motion on the table. There's support, correct?
Yes.
We have support to the motion of the conditional hire based upon LOA with the union and confirmation of conditional hire by prospective employee, full-time employee, Galloway. Any further discussion?
The only further discussion I would have is that conditional means that we're going to go through the usual background check. Well, at least a condensed version since he's been around for a couple of years.
I go through the same old process, anybody?
Because you have to go through the interview,
Yeah.
so he's gonna go through the same process as any other.
Much as went well, our last couple of, lieutenant workday was treatment all within 8 hours, and he did the same exact process that people from down the state went through the whole.
This whole discussion leading up to this motion gives us the legislative intent on record of what we're intending to do. So, I think we're fine.
Yes. So we have motion support. Any further discussion?
I'm very loyal, let's go. I'm with.
Yeah. Then we have witnesses. To that end, if there's no more discussion on the motion on the floor, roll call, please.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward.
I'd like to make another one that we haven't already done. I guess that was something different name. I'd like us to move to suspend BLS transport business immediately, effective immediately. That's all. I think that's all.
What about the licensure? Is that going to be separate?
Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead, but word it the way you would want, I'll probably accept it.
So if I may just kind of split the difference of this on this hair, with your motion, projected motion, would it not behoove this board to accept the recommendation as from the chief for the foreseeable future to reduce our licensure from BLS transport to BLS non-transport,
Right.
which then would inherently.
I would do it, yeah. That takes care of it.
And that would take effect December or January 1st.
Okay. So are we obligated to do transport?
Well, and actually, to that end,
Well, this is my question or I want to say proposal. We have one patient currently that is scheduled, I believe, every other day for a transport. And we have her transport scheduled up through the next week and a half. And at that point, she will be done. So I could, foreseeably, I don't want to check that we would fulfill our obligation.
Trustee Kroll.
Can we just make an exception for that one person and drop it effective?
Well, our licensure goes till the end of the year, so I think it's
The licensure by the state inspection goes for that year. Correct. But I think that's the difference is this motion looking to take effect to stopping the non-emergency transport and licensure change? Because tomorrow is the effective date of inspection.
I'll add to that motion that we change our licensure to BLS non-transport as of January 1, but we don't accept any transports immediately except those scheduled as of today.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion on the table. Does anybody need the motion reread?
Or
There's support on the table onto the motion by Trustee Lappin. Further discussion? to the motion on the table?
I just want to make sure I have it right. It's to accept the chief's recommendation to change to BLS non-transport as of 1/1/21 and to accept no new non-emergency transfers other than those that are scheduled effective 12/8/20.
So just point of clarification, we have a motion and support. Discussion, trustee Foley?
Is this to take care of this one person or whatever falls into that time period?
I'm scheduled through today, or, I mean, through the rest of the month. Right now, we only have one person scheduled.
We only have one person scheduled? Correct.
So has that point been made clear to this board that at this point in time, with the motion on the table, that there is the exception of one patient that is already scheduled through the completion of his or her treatment?
As until January 1st.
As to January 1st. This is not the time for employee discussion, unfortunately, Mr. Stevens. But we will have a point of clarification that we will still have to send for this month, have to send the 2 medical positions through this month based on that with the drop of licensure. So.
Nathan, you have the Stevens online and everything you're saying?
Yes, Mr. Stevens, unfortunately, right now, this is, as an employee, you'll be addressed during public comment after this. So, thank you very much, Aaron. And then also, Chief, you'll have to provide notice to the patient of the need for the new plan after January 1. So that person, if they need to continue.
My understanding is that treatment course will be done within the next week and a half. And there will be no further need, so.
So we have a motion and support on the table. Is there further discussion by any trustee? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Everett Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Chief, floor is still yours. I mean, so right now, we've just made some corrective actions to mitigate some expenditures, to accelerate and fulfill one job opening. And Laura?
I just wondered, Russ, you were going to talk, were you going to do another motion about the two?
Well,
Or not?
I'm going to make a suggestion, and we'll consider that a motion to do it if we choose to. I don't know. As far as, does that solve your temporary immediate staffing problem to have the coverage we need? We still haven't decided on abandoning the Southside Station with staffing. You still want us to consider that?
Not at this point in time. If willing, this comes to fruition, that will still leave us a number of big on-call contingent and at least 4 active officers between the 2 stations.
So that means you're 24 on, 24 out, 24 on.
Yeah, and I mean, sitting in my foot in my mouth a couple months ago. I told the guys, I asked them how they liked my new staffing proclamation, and they said, what's that? And I said 24 on, 24 on. But, no, certainly this is, the staffing issue is very serious and is going to impact us significantly.
So those right 4 officers you have include yourself.
Yes, I do. I mean, I love my job and doing the admission. I feel this is a separate discussion aside that I work 24-hour shifts. I think I can still complete a great deal of administrative duties if required that I perform right now until that stops. Yeah, until staffing levels
But the point is, we've got to get some sort of waiver to be able to work 24 hours.
Right. And that's
Otherwise,
why
you're
I'm,
going over 3 people.
yeah, I'm balancing, I'm on the management side versus my years of experience as a union guy. I certainly want to serve the union at all, but I feel there's a great need for staffing right now that requires some, certainly some,
Hopefully the high cotton clients aren't going to be skating. Hopefully they're going to be engaged at least for the next roughly 45 days.
yes.
So the immediate need is sort of filled, but we've got to still obviously move forward on the other stuff too.
I don't understand 45 days.
Yeah, well, they're December 21st, it's November 8th, oh, December, excuse me. Wow, I just totally lost my mind.
It's okay. It's okay, Ricardo. Happens to the best of us.
Wow.
So, and
Thank you for the point of clarification, Trustee Reinhardt. I was also quite concerned about the 45-day timeline myself.
I actually wanted to take the next time that Trustee Foley being so he's the one that raised the question. No, I want you guys to know if there is any doubt that number one, management issues aside, the guys' safety is my utmost concern and focus. I will not to play sympathy cards or anything, but I'm chewing on a pretty big ulcer right now because having that type of responsibility and sending people. It's different when you're doing it yourself than when you're responsible for other people. So their safety is like my absolute bottom line. Now, having said that, too, also given my duties in a managerial position, I want the board to know that if indeed this staffing issue gets any worse or turns again, say another resignation or sickness, I certainly am not opposed at all to reaching out to the other departments, the other chiefs, and that doesn't include city fire, and seeing if there's any way, shape, or form if they can assist us in manpower, given the constraints of union contracts and from the city side, to help us stop the staffing problem until hopefully after the first year when we can get back on our feet again. Also, having said that, there are two things in the back of my mind. One is, and I always preface this was, I'm not meaning any conflict or disrespect out of it. I'm speaking frankly and want to rectify the situation, and that is, I've heard several times, and I certainly have talked about this, is that there is a communication gap or breakdown between myself and the board. So I don't know if this is the time and place you want to address that or save it for another meeting. But
Oh, and I think to that end, I mean, I think to that end, we need to focus on the immediate issues, and that's what we're doing right now. I think what we're doing is going to be looking at conducting a special meeting between now and the 28th, because we will need to start immediately with starting an interview form, whether or not it's by online process or otherwise. And right now, from my standpoint, I would like to focus on the primary issues, and that right now is staffing.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask another question about Dave, and then I was going to suggest that on this proposal, we have that special meeting where we can focus just on that. There's an awful lot of questions raised in that. There's some things that probably can, given the city council action last night, we probably could just eliminate. But there's things, just terminology things that I need to learn about, acronyms and so they're using. changed the fire department. Kathy or somebody had a really good question about whether we need to start people at a firefighter level as opposed to an officer level. And so, you know, those are pretty basic, major changes that we can discuss. But Dave, of these 8 candidates, or now 7 perhaps, are there 3 others that might also be able to be brought on, or at least offered, similar to what we're offering Kevin, in terms of you know, while we're pending the time period that it takes to do appropriate background checks, that would come on and be our employees now or soon, or within the next 2 weeks, on a conditional basis? Or would they be leaving other employment that would, you know, prohibit them from doing that?
I think that's a slippery slope of a question without knowing what those candidates' background and position is currently. I think it would be a case-by-case scenario, and I think that's already the focus and the direction of the chief and the personnel to really work through that.
Well, could we, because, could you have that discussion to do that?
I think following this meeting,
Because we need much more on that.
making calls to schedule interviews. This is an immediate,
I would think by 5 o'clock today, we would have interviews scheduled.
Yeah, we could stay the course right now, not get on that slippery slope.
I concur. But Chief, you did have a point when Trustee Foley was away.
Yeah, normally I can be stepped out. I apologize, but what I addressed the board with is I wanted you to know, because you raised the question, number one, and I hope there's no question that the guy's safety is number one with me. That responsibility, I think, is huge. And having said that, I'm leading into the, are we overworking them? Are we causing unsafe conditions? And that is if and when, and that may be sooner, it may not, but we get to a point where I have concerns about the safety of the guys working that many shifts, and the manpower gets that desired. I have no compunction at all against contacting Chief Bush or any of the other chiefs to see if there's some way we can do a stopgap and solve this staffing issue on at least a temporary basis until another more permanent solution can be found. I'm not objectionable to that at all.
Have you made any contact to the point of, gee, we've got some things coming up, is this something we can talk about down the road so that they're aware of where we're at? I'm just.
No, I haven't, and that's for the simple fact of being a black and white. They either are or they aren't. The first gentleman I would have the discussion with is the one that's taking a couple of my employees, so I believe he is aware of the situations. But again, that's an assumption, and I certainly have no problem reaching out to anyone and to try to remedy any staffing problems we have, get this solved.
So I think a good closing to the discussion that started thus far is, Chief, I would like for you to tell this board what the mission statement, the core, because part of it, I think where Trustee Lackman had one point of a question as to with the paid on call and the non-emergency transfer aspect. And I've asked you this in the personnel, what makes it palatable to those individuals when it's a directive from you versus what historically was the point of conversation, which is now a moot point. But what is our mission as a department?
Well, to paraphrase our mission statement is to provide the highest quality service we can to the community within regards to fire response, operations, and it does include the emergency services and that paraphrase that's up. I will say up front, much as I would love to say every bit of the department as it is, I have always believed and always do that a fire department's primary mission is fire services. So if we can and are able to step back to where we were out of that certainly, it would make me happy to provide additional services to the community. But as far as I always come up with a bunch of hickory smoke stuff, and that sometimes we got to come out and say try for sanitation. I would say that from my chair where I sit right now, however personally unpalatable it may be, I see the best course of action is to drop back to BLS non-transport to preserve our primary mission as a fire department. So.
I would just like to comment, I mean, and I know we'll discuss the communication gap at a future meeting, but I think that's a very important thing, very important conversation we need to all have together.
I agree, particularly in light of the last couple of weeks. So I would offer to you as a board at a minimum, what I can do for you guys is we need to sit down and have that discussion. Believe me, the last thing I want to be as a chief is a mud. That's firefighter derogatory term for someone that doesn't do so. And the other thing is, I think while I'm beholden now, it would behoove me to give the board some type of 3 to 5 year structured plan as for where the fire department is and what we want it to be in both 3 and 5 years, and see how we can attain those goals. And make it, so.
And to that comment, Chief, I would actually implore you to add 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years, because we're working on the immediate concerns. But as that 1 year plays out, which is going to be here before we know it, let's just continue that being a conversation.
No, I'm sorry.
Are there any other questions of the chief or the motions that we brought?
The only thing I want to say is about the structured plan. Did you mean that you would bring the structured plan from? Because I think a structured plan should be all the board and, you as the fire chief. Like. So
There needs to be a recommendation from the
right.
department head first.
Right, but then you got, I mean,
But then
certainly,
We would all have input.
I know you guys haven't been through the class, and I refer to a lot, but there's actually a class called Fire Chief 101 from the state, and one of the primary functions is my duty as chief is liaison with the board as much as possible, and you guys and that stuff. So if you have some type of structured plan on paper that says this is where I would like to be, this is how I intend to accomplish that, make recommendations to you, it may be easier than me just standing there and saying, that'd be nice.
And the plan may come after we have that discussion, so that you can go back to a drawing board and try to write up what we kind of direct to.
So we have a multifaceted approach moving forward. I think one thing that maybe since we're here, so that we can have some finalization of the topics of discussion, adequate time to have the personnel and the chief start an interview process is, should we not, although by Open Meetings Act considerations, we just need 18 hours advance to call a meeting, but would it not behoove us, since we have an entire board here, to look at dates of the week of the 14th through the 18th to set forth a date and time for our subsequent board meeting that would be a special.
Are you going to have it during the day or in the evening?
What was the date?
14th to the 18th, the week of the 14th to the 18th. I'm open to whatever we need to do, whatever's going to get us the majority, because as we all know now, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has extended the conditions of limiting.
What's the purpose of the special meeting?
Well, the purpose would be to hopefully explore interviews and new hires.
Like we've had the interviews and.
I'm hoping that we can close out this week and start at the beginning of next week.
So the assumption is that the personnel committee will have narrowed the field.
I would hope by early next week, we would have a pretty good jump. That's my,
And Nathan, the personnel committee is actually making recommendations to ahead to the board
Yeah.
to make decisions. So you're going to go through your process. It's ultimately up to the board. It's going to say, all right, we got 8 candidates. These are the
yeah.
ones we want to hire.
So it'd be, the purpose of business would be, personnel committee recommendations as to.
If you're here today, I would think last slot there, 15 to 16.
I'm open.
That's fine.
16th is
Are we
not
doing
at
it at
11 in the morning.
I
I'd be
can't do
available
on
to
16 in the morning preferably, but I don't want to.
What day is it?
Thursday.
So we have a date we're discussing, the 16th.
And
What
Laura
time,
can't be there till noon.
Laura's unavailable until noon, as are you. What is your
I
schedule?
can make it afternoon.
So 1 o'clock?
No,
I'd entertain a motion. At this-
no,
No?
can't. I have another engagement at 1.
Well, I mean, we're gonna have,
How long is your meeting?
Could we do it Thursday in the afternoon?
Or is that too late?
Thursdays before, any day of that week is sooner than the 28th.
Yeah.
So
So let's do Thursday, if I can do that.
So there's 17.
Thursday is 17th. So we have a date. What is the majority of consensus as to a time on the 17th?
I have court in the morning, usually runs between 11:30 and
So 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. and 1:30 would be best.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion
I'll make that.
to call a special meeting on December 17th at 1:30 PM.
The only thing on the agenda that we know of will be the fire department.
That is sole focus is fire department related discussions.
I mean, I have a motion.
We already have a motion and support on the table. Is there further discussion as to the special meeting of the 17th at 1:30?
1:30?
1:30.
Oh, first 1 o'clock.
I wanted to go for trustee Reinhardt more than just a selective 7.5 years to get funds and to table. If there's no other discussion, roll call vote, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers?
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner?
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin?
Yes.
Clerk Plavich, yes. Supervisor Skibby?
Yes. So I highly, we'll start this ball rolling. Cash, immediately following the meeting, let's start making calls and setting up times and dates to conduct interviews. And we'll do everything in our power, whether it's electronic, in person, on telephone.
Is it with the chief and the whole personnel committee?
I think as long as the chief, myself, and one other person are available, I would like to have another trustee. To me, it's not centric, at this point in time. I see every trustee as a personnel committee member at this point.
Right, I was gonna say, if need be, I could step in if somebody can't make it.
So, get what, let's get
Do it
it.
afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for the chief? Thank you very much, Chief Robbins. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
so moving forward, into our next item of new business is a recycling surcharge for parcel 013-025-000-330-000. Treasurer Ellery Summers, would you like to address
Yes,
this?
I was talking with our assessor, and due to an error, we need to remove the $20 recycling surcharge from that parcel numbers 2020 bill. It was actually, they were actually charged on 2 parcels instead of 1, so we're just going to remove it off of this.
I'll entertain a motion to remove the $20 surcharge from parcel.
2020 winter.
So we have a motion to remove the $20 surcharge from parcel 013-025-000-330-000 for the year 2020.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion to remove this and support by trustee Foley to remove the surcharge. Roll call. Is there any other discussion? Yeah, after that.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner?
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin?
Yes.
Clerk Plavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers? Yes. Supervisor Skibby?
Yes. Okay, moving forward to budget amendments. I brought forward 4 total amendments, 3 debits, 1 credit to the GL that trustee Reinhardt pointed out at our previous meeting. And that is, I would like permission of this board to debit 3 water fund accounts, GLs, corresponding with 592-100-702 to the sum of $50,000 credit, 592-100-754 to the tune of $200,000. And the third and final debit would be to 592-100-756.000 at $200,000 for a total of $400,050 to be credited to GL 592-100-801.000. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to approve the budget amendments. Is there support? And support by trustee Foley. Any discussion?
Does the $50,000, that's a payroll?
That was out of, yes, the general payroll, GL.
We have to concern ourselves with any ancillary things like employee benefits, health
No.
insurance?
No, in regards to that, all legacy costs are moved. This is a combined total of a transfer of $450,000 of funds to the professional and contractual services GL. That is, its primary responsibility is direct payment to F&B operations.
Okay.
And annually, I believe that contract is roughly $653 and change thousand. So that would take care of the discrepancies that are in your GL general ledger report. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Reiner?
Yes.
Trustee Foley?
Yeah.
Trustee Lappin?
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers?
Yes.
Trustee Kroll?
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby?
Yes. Next item of business is the disposal of fixed asset list. This is, as it stands, a very short list. Michelle, would you like to?
Per our policy and procedures manual, the clerk is to prepare a list of any fixed assets for disposal. We as a township no longer need the 2018 Chevy Express cargo van. It was used by the DPW department. Currently being used by F&B, but
Yes.
I think we need to get approval to dispose of them.
So at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the disposal of fixed asset list that has been provided.
I have a question. This is a cargo van, so I don't know if it would meet the criteria, but if we were to go to a first responder, would this fit the bill for a vehicle that could be used for first responder?
I would not think that this would be, I mean, any vehicle.
Right now, we're running ambulances out.
Right now, we're running the ambulances, but at this point in time, well, right now, we're looking at a few different things that may be of concern. One, this is a non-tax dollar entity, the water department that we're talking about in terms of transference to the vehicle.
Too complicated?
And really, the next item on the agenda kind of is explanatory to the process of accepting and approving the fixed disposal of fixed asset list. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to accept the disposal of fixed
I'll take
assets.
that motion.
We have a motion on the table by trustee Kroll, support by trustee Foley. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee Lappin?
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers?
Yes.
Trustee Kroll?
Yes.
Trustee Reiner?
Okay. Yes.
Supervisor Skibby?
Yes. The next item of business is the sale of said DPW van that inherently was purchased and is continued to be used singularly in the water fund for conducting said operations. We have an offer from Blair Sellover, which is the group manager through F&B, and an offer on the table to purchase said cargo van for continued water department operations under the guise of ownership of F&B. The offer on the table, and it was confirmed through Kelly Blue Book, that it's more than the median of $18,500 to purchase said van for continued operations through F&B.
We need to submit this out to general, do we need to post this?
No, we're actually following our policy and procedure manual for the disposal of assets. It can be the direction of this board. It gives in the PPM, it gives 3 different options. With the conveyance and the agreement upon the disposal of fixed asset list, that was the primary marker that we had to entertain first to have this discussion of disposal of the fixed asset. We don't have to post it. We could if there were. It's up to the supervisor of this board as it stands. It's used in this function, and it's used primarily by our subcontracted employees. And it was an offer from F&B to make purchase of that vehicle. And if there's anything I'm missing, I think I covered that. They would like to make that whole. The contract that we signed in August of provided vehicles, there is a shortage of work vehicles, as we've kind of noticed. So this would be a win-win from one, having mitigated continued liability of ownership of vehicle to be completely utilized by a subcontractor. So this would put the onus of liability back on F&B.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to accept the offer of $18,500 from F&B Operations for the purchase and continued use of the 2018 Chevy Cargo van. We have support by Trustee Kroll. Is there further discussion? Roll call vote.
It's been supported?
Yes, we have support.
Oh, yeah. So where's this vehicle gonna go?
Exactly where it's at now.
So it'll be used locally?
Yes, yeah, it's currently being used locally. It will remain local. It just cuts the curve of a timeline of filling that with an outside vehicle.
Did you inform us of the Kelly Blue Book you said you used, the low high on that?
The median trade-in value that was investigated was $18,324. We purchased the van a year ago for $24,000 and subsequently put 20,000 miles, I believe, a little over 20,000 miles in a year.
Trade-ins, having been in the auto business many 40-some years ago, trade-in value is usually local, so what was the high value?
I don't have it right here, so. Yes, Justin.
Since F&B bought it, or we're selling it to them, they can do whatever they want.
That's right.
I mean, it is. I mean,
Yeah, they're gonna put it in your fleet.
Yes, Michelle.
They currently have the Charter Township of Buffalo logo. Will you guys be taking that off and putting F&B on text? And this will send a picture.
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Trying to get out of line and see what's the value of that.
Well. Well, and in the meantime, we have a motion and support. If there is no further discussion, I would enter roll call.
Trustee Lappin,
No.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner,
No.
Trustee Coley,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Motion passed. Moving forward, I would like the board's permission to put together an RFP for the purchase of a DPW truck that would be utilized for grounds maintenance. And basically, I'd just like the opportunity to put out an RFP for.
Doesn't mean we're going to buy one, we're just going to put on our.
Just get the RFP going. Trustee Lappin, did you find anything else out?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we put the RFP out for a DPW plow truck.
We have a motion on the table to move forward with allowing me to put together an RFP for a plow truck. Support. Been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none.
So you'll bring it back here?
Yeah, it's coming back to the board anyways. All those in favor of moving forward with an RFP for a plow truck, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And obviously, I'll go through with our policy and procedures. We go to local venues first, and also the My Deal, so.
Well, you can't, you have to send out the RFP. It goes
Put it
on
on the
everywhere.
website.
It puts on the website, we have to advertise it.
So in all actuality, if I could, actually utilize the motion and the amendment, or the, so second on the table, I would actually prefer a roll call because there will be a potential for an inherent cost. So if there's a cost to
It won't be
advertise.
a cost to advertise it till you bring it back and they approve your
Okay,
RFP.
copy that. So the motion and support stands. This will be coming back, so I apologize for that.
Got you covered.
Cal, covered. Thank you very much. So moving forward, I'll grab this one as well, was one of the individuals, we didn't get it until after we published the agenda, is paperwork from C2AE, which is our engineering firm, of which we started discussions with, I believe, almost 3 weeks ago, as Eagle presented the opportunity for water and sewer providers, opportunities for combined goal on the water and sewer side for $500 million in grants. And what this is representing is an opportunity for us to, through the drinking water asset management plan, which has historically also been one of our findings in our audit report, is a defined asset list. This actually has an ability afforded of a potential $1 million. I think that's the high end. Any municipality is capped at $1 million request for grants through the Drinking Water Asset Management DWAM series of the grant process. There's going to be several grants processes that are going to be forthcoming. But what you have before you is a contract for services for C2AE at $2,500 to move forward with securing our position in terms of the grant application. So at this point, I've entertained a motion to move forward. We have a motion to move forward with C2AE to submit for the Drinking Water Asset Management Plan grant. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? I can add to that as to the cost of $2,500. There is a scoring criteria, as there always is through grant processes. If by chance we don't make the first cut and there's remaining funds available, we don't have to reapply. We're still in that loop. So that will be forthcoming. Yes.
I just have a question. It says the first application deadline is January 1st, 2021. Is it possible for them to get this submitted before then?
Oh, that's what the intent is because this is the first come, first serve.
There's enough time for them.
Oh, we got enough time. We just had this conference call, I believe, yesterday, or was it on Monday? It was a Monday.
Yesterday morning.
Yes. Could have been this Monday, today Monday, last
Thursday and yesterday.
Yep. So, roll call vote. If there's no further discussion.
Where are we paying for it out of?
It would be under professional contractual services, so 559, yeah, it would be water department requests. So the GL mechanism of payment would be 592-100-801.000 to the tune of $2,500 to C2A. Roll call vote, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers?
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner?
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin?
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Supervisor Skibby?
Yes. Moving on to department reports. Mark, would you like to address the board in terms of?
It looks like we've got work roads, what we take care of, we head right back out there. They did have a warrant jacket,
probably get a coupling, and then put the sewer in, and halfway across, push the cable over the line. Water leaks continue to be a big issue, to come up, trying to get them done, as often as possible. One thing we did have is, are you gonna have your meeting on the 28th?
We are still scheduled to continue to move forward with the meeting on the 28th.
Okay, because we're working on putting together that booster station package for you with regards to the combat readiness training center coordination issue. So we'd like to probably bring that to you, not that. If that meeting happens to move, let us know so we can get that put together.
You'll be most definitely in the loop.
Other than that, you guys have the operating report, any questions in there that you can see? Obviously, the biggest thing that we did is we upgraded the Princeton lift station. It all has new pumps in it. That's a big help. That'll hopefully keep that station running for a while longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different water leaks, 7. Including 2 that happened on Greenhaven. Right at the end of the year, 7 or 8 water leaks last month. It was a pretty heavy month for us.
Yes, Norm.
Just keep this water in the pipes and the stuff moving downhill. We're trying. Thank you.
That was a very scientific approach. I love it.
Nail it down.
Oh, since we did actually.
That's, I was gonna remind you.
Yeah, so we'll finish this report. I missed my note, so I do apologize. Thank you.
I love these reports.
I
They're
do.
very detailed, and I mean, it's good job, Kath.
Yeah, the silent partner by video. So thank you very much. There's no other questions for Mark. Thank you. On your way out, if you see Don in the building department, can you tell him to please join us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And getting back to the amended new business, which was the proposed amendment to the water and sewer ordinance. Tim, would you like to address?
Sure, your township has a sanitary sewer and water ordinance. It addresses all the requirements and rules and things that people need to look at when they're hooking in or on new structures being built. I recently helped another municipality with its ordinance, and it addresses, there are 2 methods for obtaining liens on property. If a person or a business doesn't pay its water or sewer bill, and 2 statutes, separate statutes, address the 2 mechanisms for doing that. Our ordinance currently does deal with that, but helping the other township, it's caused me to revisit yours, and I think it's in everybody's best interest, especially the public's, to have that laid out, mirroring the statute. It won't be a big project for me to amend it, since I've already done it, drafted the language. I'll just be plugging it into your ordinance and ordinance amendment form. So I want the board's permission before I just took that project on. It won't be a lot, maybe an hour's worth of work.
Trustee Poland.
I'll make that motion that you do that.
With the motion on the table, and support. Any further discussion? Yeah, this kind of came up in one instance where Tim and I were working and matched another municipality. Laura, did you have a comment?
I appreciate Tim looking out for us and to get that updated.
Yeah.
It will come to us, not the wetlands, they will take it out, added in.
They'll just be added in addition, so.
And I'll bring it back to the board's meeting the 28th for introduction.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, everybody know I'm gonna
Before the adoption.
get the copy of it, so you'll see what this is. Yes.
So we have a motion and support, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Pearl.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. On to our next department. Mr. Gilman, would you like to address the board?
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, Dr. Board. I stand before you. I want you to know I called me on. I told you guys.
Thank you.
That was a joke.
Happy to do this stuff.
Yeah, so we're currently operating under it's not a mutual aid agreement, but it's a letter of understanding that the city and the township building department are going all the way back, and when COVID happened, we reinstated it again, just in case somebody in the department goes down for illness or vacation or whatever, so that we can keep the smooth flow for the customers of getting their inspections done timely and permits to do things like that. So the good news is, it's very low cost for me to fill in for your building official right now. Just so that you're aware, I've already talked with Michelle and Nathan about it. The city will be sending the township to build the $2,500 for November and December. Just haven't put it together yet to cover the time.
November and December or 2,500?
It'll be for both. Yeah, it's going to be, they'll let you cover it out.
I thought you were doing the subgoodness of your heart.
I am, I don't get basically, they'll reimburse me a couple $100 for my mileage. I do inspect a little bit area. And they're just recouping costs. But, we're out because I was on vacation all November, trying to burn up vacation before I retired from the city. And with COVID and everything else going on, I didn't want to overburden my assistant building official, Mr. Palashewski, with the extra work out here, because it's about 3-4 hours a day, between phone calls, site visits, getting with Lynn, and issuing permits and going over plans and stuff. And I just want to say too, that you've got a real asset in Lynn. Through our cooperation with each other, we also the city hired a new clerical assistant for the building and assessing department. And so Lynn is going to help get with her and show her how to, they email permits to people just to make it seamless. But most importantly, and you guys have been around the area for a long time, my goal has always been that things should be the same. It should be different because you're in a township pulling permits. Now I'm in the city, what we talked over before about rental inspections, everything else. So this all works pretty good. Okay, so on to the report. Kurt, I knew Kurt before he came here, and when he did start out, whatever day it was, I reached out to offer assistance, and like building officials do with each other. We have a network, we belong to the same organization. I took him with me on inspections of the large buildings like the credit union, because those are things he was liking to see when he was downstate. All that being said, I don't know what happened. I can absolutely tell you, without going into a whole lot of specifics, the stuff that I'm seeing on new houses, additions, I don't even know how they passed over. And because, you'll find people say bad things about me, and I hear people say bad things about her, so I dismiss that. Because that's just the nature of the beast. We're dealing with diversity. So when one person tells me something, I mean, maybe that's right, maybe it is. Similar to the decision you probably had to make before you made your move, to dismiss it from a point. But when I get it, the next 3 people in a row, and it's a simple problem. And I'm talking about stuff like, everybody's familiar with the garage. If you attach a garage to your house, you can have a drywall, tap-in, firewall. You can't have a window in the door. And I go to final a garage addition that, according to the inspection report, just needed a handrail put on a stairway or something. And I go in there and it's not even close. So now I'm towards the fellow builder and the owner, by the way, those 2 doors both need to be replaced. And you're going to have to figure out how to put a door at the top of the stairs, because that's what it is. So I come back and I go through the records. When we issue permits, we should have a plan of exactly what that homeowner, that builder wants to construct. Because our job is to review it and see that it's very close to code, so before they start building. So we look at it and say, you gotta have this kind of door here, you gotta have this kind of drywall, this kind of insulation. I can't find them. So if they exist, they don't exist within your existing computer software that you use on the building. Well, I was waiting, this fellow here I just talked to, he's got expired permit addition, 1,000 square foot addition. And I look at the inspection, it said we set a site, and there'll be a date, and nothing further. So I show them that how, if I go to do a footing inspection, I don't just put it in the computer, I was there on the 19th of February, it's approved. I put in there according to the agency specs, applied, Google, so there's a record of what I saw, aside from the fact that I approved. I'm not saying that all your records are that way, I'm saying the ones I'm looking at, a lot of them are that way. I'm going to the things that people say, well, he was here 3 times. I said, what kind of inspection did he tell you about? Well, he didn't. He just said he's called the area all the time to stop in, so that's great. Unfortunately, it's recorded. I'm fixing all that. It's not a showstopper. I guess I'm just, in my way, trying to give board some assurance that you probably made the right decision as far as terminating employment. And moving forward, Nathan and I are talking about trying to find whatever you're going to do moving forward with the new building official. If there's somebody that needs help with qualification, I'm retired from the city, and we've always worked together. Because again, to that end, that the township and the city are similar for the benefit of the public. In the realm of building, the things that I didn't know if any of you had any questions for me. Or...
Any questions for Don while he's there?
So what you're saying is if you go and do an inspection for one thing and you see a violation for another thing, you can make some change to that?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's not hand, it's must. I'll give you.
So even though they were approved in a construction that happened in 1970 or something?
Oh, no. I'm talking about active building.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about if somebody's doing an addition at the far end of their house and their garage doesn't meet.
Oh, no. Russ, let me clarify. We're just talking about specifically what they pull a building permit for.
Okay.
No, the other things are, like you say, grandfather. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have drywall in their garage. They got heavy family from the don't. That's great. But again, having said, there's violations that I do see, and it is unfortunate within the current permit that have to be corrected. For example, that garage that I not told, it's going to cost them $2,000 probably minimum. And then they're going to have the pieces they take out that are worthless. But if I just let that go and they have a fire, I think they could tell the insurance company to say, well, you know what? Too bad that fire started to drive your house down, but this isn't right. They can actually get out of taking police. Doesn't matter. And then the person's going to be mad. Who are they going to look at and make them whole? Okay, and again, it's just the numbers, the occurrences are what disturb me. If it was 1 out of 10, but it's 1 out of 2 right now. And granted, I'm not seeing everything out there. I'm just seeing the ones that are calling for inspections, getting caught up on, some paperwork stuff. But we're going to make it right. But again, it was just more or less to give you, the board, a heads up as to what I'm seeing, because you don't get to look and see that stuff.
So I just have a question. So what about from the beginning of when the previous building official was doing that job to now? And if you're running into these issues, are we liable for anything back 2 years ago? Do those need to be revisited or?
No, there's no way to revisit it. It'd be very onerous. No, but you're just aware that there's a potential that there could be some problems. And I'm not saying that things from way before are bad, because they probably aren't. Something happened.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened over the course of the employment, which doesn't matter to me what it was, but that obviously, it was something, and things change. And so I'm seeing, since things change, there's a lot of stuff. I don't know if he had different books he wrote inspections in, and somehow they didn't get recorded in the computer system. I didn't know how they could all be in that computer system, because that's what the public can look at when they go on DSA online.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Gilman?
I'd just like to thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
My pleasure, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not even a pleasure to work with.
That's right.
On the line.
No,
You really have.
Well, we appreciate your efforts, Commissioner Gilman.
We all got skin in the game. we don't, people get upset enough without us throwing camera at it. Yeah, you guys don't. All right,
Thank you very much.
By the way, can you tell Chris Lewis to step up, please? If he's in there?
Yeah, be delayed.
Mr. Chair, I would have to ask to be excused. Either way, keep going. That I put up this morning. We're scheduled for 10:30, we're ending up after 11, I got those moved to 2, I need to go.
By all means, please address your business at hand, and I appreciate the acknowledgement of your early departure.
Thank you for your.
Mr. Lewis.
We noted. Now, yes, Chris Lewis, would you please just address this is something annually we always do, is update, so what's yours?
Federal poverty guidelines for poverty exemptions. This is- The board's gonna have to adopt it. They're done every year. Along with, also the guidelines are changed because every year I'm supposed to, as far as the value of the property, to meet the poverty guidelines, we do an average of the residential property, what that value is. And this year it'll be $50,008 for assessed value or SAV. So that's changed. That'll change every year too.
And Tim, we just need to approve this by motion or resolution? No, it wouldn't be resolution.
Well, this is a resolution.
Oh, it actually is over. So would somebody be willing to?
Yeah, this is
Yeah. I'll be good at it. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution that is stated as presented. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the supervisor, assessor, and board of review shall follow the above stated policy and federal guidelines in granting or denying exemptions unless the supervisor / assessor and board of review determines there is substantial and compelling reasons why there should be a deviation from the policy and the federal guidelines, and these reasons are communicated in writing to the claimant. And so that is the resolution to the state and federal property guidelines.
So a motion to adopt the resolution in a second?
I'll make the motion to adopt the federal property guidelines for 2021 assessments as presented.
We have a motion on the table to approve, and we have support to the resolution as to adopting the updated federal and state property guidelines. Is there any other discussion?
Do we also have to approve the other sheet that's in your hand?
I have to copy the guidelines also, but they're on sheet.
I remember doing that every year.
Yeah. So, basically all I do is go do an update, whatever asset, well, the board review determines the asset level. But I do the, what's the average for.
Tim, do you think we need to do the resolution and that, or does the resolution cover that?
Policy and guidelines, federal policy and guidelines.
Well, we can, let's do a motion in addition to the resolution, just to have it documented.
So we have a motion and support on the table to the resolution that was brought forth. Without further discussion.
This is for the federal property.
Yeah, for the first roll call.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
No.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. So then we now have a recommendation from our head assessor as to our fiscal year 2021, the township's average residential SEV, or residential equalized value is $50,800, which has been rounded to a new number, which represents a market value of $101,600.
Correct. So that's a guideline, and you own a home that exceeds that amount, that's something the board of review can take into consideration as part of a denial.
Do you see, council, do you see anything that we should address in terms of how the motion should be presented in regards?
Well, the motion to follow the assessor's recommendation and then identifying that document, so, or Michelle can use the title on the document, upper with the.
Yeah.
She's got it.
So, the motion to accept assessor's recommendation, to accept 2021 property acceptance policy.
That sounds good.
The motion.
Yep, so do we have that motion on the table?
Someone make the motion.
Well,
I'll make the motion.
we have a motion on the table to accept the recommendation as to the 2021 property guidelines. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Trustee Foley? Trustee Summers, moved by Foley. Roll call vote.
Clerk Flavich, yeah. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Anything else to address with?
Yeah, just so you know, the guideline, property guidelines, you can go above them, but you cannot go above them. So if the township board decides, well, 12,760 is a little high, they can go below that federal property guidelines, but you can't exceed that. So another thing is, there's been a talk about the designated assessor.
Yes, we do.
So we'll address that.
Yes, please.
And my name is not Alan Bird. And I'm still going to be assessing here. So these are for the state tax guidelines. As far as what we're going to be looking for to see if the assessing is in compliance. And one of the three main things that they look for is property developed and documented land values. So in essence, that you're doing land value studies. And the land values you do have, like let's say 20-acre parcels, is on for 20-acre parcels. It's not something else. And there's no more than 1% of land adjustments without reason. So that's for the initial AMR, that's one of the things that it's always been in the AMR. That's nothing new.
And would you just refresh the board as to the acronym AMR?
Assessor minimum assessing requirements. So they initially had it in 2000.
Well, we're good for 34 years, correct?
Yeah, this is the third. In 2023, it'll be our third AMR. 2013 was the first one. And what they had a problem with was a lot of people weren't doing their studies and they weren't doing, they were just following the law. The county said to raise residential $2 million. And across the board, raised it $2 million. They weren't actually doing it down. And so after that first one, there was a lot of assessors that lost their certification. And the state tax commission seized their homes. And so they had a second round of AMRs. And even more people still didn't do anything for the first one. So there was more seizing of the homes and people losing their certification. So thus the assessment reform that they passed the bill. Now the assessment reform also included that, mandated that each county in the state of Michigan had to have a designated assessor. The designated assessor is basically, let's say we failed, and you got to fail twice. You know, if we fail one of these reasons, then we have to give a corrective action plan.
1 year to correct.
Correct. If you give them a corrective action plan, they approve it, and say this is what I'm going to do to correct the deficiency. And if the next year, if you fail it again, that's when the designated assessor takes over. And In essence, they made a designated assessor, so the state tax commission would have to see the rules and do the assessing, or hire someone to do it. Each county would have a designated assessor that, just in case one of these jurisdictions fail, that they have someone in place that could bring the rule up to.
Which is what we approved at our previous meeting, with zero cost to us as an entity, as a best case scenario was the utilization of the only person in northern Michigan with said licensure to meet the state qualifications. So, yeah. Yes.
Can we just make it clear though, because of Facebook having said that we have gotten rid of our assessing department, we have not gotten rid of our assessing department.
Like I
We
said,
still have an assessing department, we still have an assessor, we have there's 3 people in that department, they are.
and the only time that a designated assessor would step in is if, like, this township failed their AMR twice in a row. And that's, because most of this stuff you'll see in there, we can talk about it at different times, but most of this stuff is, almost all of it is stuff we've already been through in the past 2 AMRs. There's nothing new, except for the designated assessor. So as long as you're doing your job and following our guidelines, then it should be okay.
Our AMR is done every 5 years.
Every 5 years. And they got, this cycle ends, the last counties are in 2022. So 2023, we'll help in the county right now for another.
And I actually participated in the last AMR review with Chris, which he did a phenomenal job. So, thank you very much for the clarification. You are Chris. Moving forward to the clerk's report.
Starting tomorrow, we'll be advertising for the administrative assistant position in the Alpena News, and it is on Indeed.com today. The deadline to submit is December 23rd, so hopefully at the 28th meeting, I'm scheduling interviews with the personnel committee.
Anything else? Or does that conclude your report?
Just everything else is the same.
Wonderful. Ms. Ellery Summers?
We're in the full swing of collecting taxes and special assessments since December 1st. I'm still working on completing the bank recs for November, and I have been participating in my continuing education webinars with the Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association to earn my professional credentials to become the Michigan Certified Professional Treasurer in April of 2021. Should have received it last year, but because of COVID, it didn't happen. So they're doing some webinar classes and as well as physically going there in April.
Any additional updates?
I'm good.
As for myself, I've been working diligently with both Kath and Mark from F&B. That's Flight Academy. And Larry Fox and Gary Johnson with C2AE as to getting some notable projects together for the drinking water asset management grant that will be rolling out. I actually am working continuously to find fill a position on the planning commission to an open appointment. That being said, we also have, with the departure of Trustee Dunkel and the addition of Trustee Reinhardt, an open liaison seat of the ZBA board. And at this time, I would entertain any interested trustees, individuals to fulfill that role, or it could be the classic scenario, the trustee that isn't present becomes the liaison to the ZBA. The ZBA, it's highly infrequent. It's an as-needed basis, and I think in the past 4 years, ZBA's conducted business less than a half dozen times. It's been pretty minimal. Is there anybody present that would like the appointment to the ZBA board? If,
Mr. Brown, trustee Reiner.
well, we have a motion to,
A legal background could help.
yeah. Okay. I will entertain a motion to set it back.
Supported by.
We have support.
Nominate Steve Ross.
Yeah.
The ZBA.
Correct, as a liaison. Correct.
From the board.
You can let them know. So we have a motion and support on the table. Any discussion?
He's the only one that didn't step back.
Yeah. Or if he's the only one that did. All those in favor of appointing trustee Reinhardt to the liaison position, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. So that takes care of that. Also, been working diligently with the planning commission. Last night we held an open house to the FEMA preliminary mapping study, and also had open discussion as to potentials of future language amendments. As my role as a zoning administrator is forcing me to work diligently with private individuals and Mr. Gilman, and we've worked seamlessly thus far. Working with the language day in, day out is kind of opening opportunities for some of potential loopholes to be remedied. So, been working diligently there. Also, on behalf of the township, I volunteered after I received a call the day after Thanksgiving. So, we as a board volunteered clean up a plethora of trash, or that's a great deal of trash. On the,
Not a lot of trash.
that is a lot of trash. So, one bag of trash at the Frog Road, Partridge Point Park. So it was good to at least get that cleaned up. The unfortunate consequence was my dog snapped her ACL while we were out there. So that really kind of concludes. I'm working, as I stated, to fulfill an appointment with the Planning Commission, working with all department heads, and obviously moving into the remainder of this week into next, we'll be working diligently with the personnel committee.
Are we advertising the planning commission vacancy?
No,
Shouldn't we?
it's an appointment by me. So I don't want to have any expense. I'm
Okay.
listening to recommendations and doing interviews independently so that
We, at no expense, want to put it on the website.
oh yeah, we can do
I mean,
that.
that doesn't cost us anything.
No.
So
And do you have people that are interested?
I'm in discussions with 3 people currently.
Okay.
I
think the website's a good idea, but.
So, so anyways, I'll be bringing that recommendation for appointment back to the board hopefully sooner rather than later. And that kind of concludes my report. This is the second opportunity for public comment at this point. If there is any public comment by telephone, please state your name for the record and speak clearly. Or is there any public comment by telephone? Okay.
You have to stay on there every meeting. And it's temporary.
Public comment by telephone? What was that, Aaron?
Can you hear it?
Yes, I can hear.
Hey, okay, apparently was now unmuted. I'll just go ahead and jump right in. This is Evelyn, I'm 5864 Missouri Road. First of all, I would really like to extend my gratitude and thank you to the supervisor and the trustees of this board. I want to say that I've we are now in staffing crunch, which I believe is the most misfortunate product of the events that have happened since November 5th. These events can be attributed to a lack of attention to specific areas that we all have responsibility in, which I am trying, as the public, to help fix and appreciate the interactions on this board. I would like to extend the complete support to the trustees in your quest to really understand the benefits and cons attached to the non-medical BLS transfers. It appears we really don't know what we don't know and the true answers regarding this. It will be interesting to explore the revenue from the billing insurance for non-medical transfers on a longitudinal basis, not just in the last 6 months, but possibly from COVID. That certainly is a concern that we as a township originally ordered a third-party audit by J.R. Henry Control in February 2020, and here we sit in December, 10 months later, and we still don't have that added economic understanding. I hope we can all get to the why to continue to help our community, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Banks. Are there additional comments by telephone? Are there additional comments by telephone?
Yeah,
Could you, sir, could you repeat your name?
Charles Knox.
Okay.
What is going to be the economical backlash of non-federal transport to downstate or west state facilities?
Well, I typically don't answer questions during public comment, but there will be none because we've already suspended long distance transfers.
Right. What would be the economic backlash of that?
From my position, Mr. Knox, zero.
Okay. You answered my question the first time around because I raised 5 children, and when they take that long to answer a question, we know that the answer is not good. So I appreciate your time and your lack of effort in dealing with all of this. Thank you.
Well, we just need to clarify that transports are not a function that are on the burden of the taxpayers.
Yes.
That is not part of our mission. So we try to
Can you also speak up because we do have people there?
Well, your tax dollars are not going to transporting private citizens out of town or to other facilities. That is not the purpose of the tax dollars. It is to support the fire suppression function of it.
So moving forward, thank you for the point of clarification, Trustee Kroll. Further comment by telephone? Is there additional comment by telephone? Aaron, is there anybody on the telephone that has comment to give?
Everybody has their mic is open, they're able to talk.
Okay.
To my knowledge, nobody else speaks out.
This will be the last opportunity to give public comment by telephone. Is there any additional public comment? Hearing none, we'll move forward to the discussion of the board. Is there additional discussion to be had by the board?
I would just like to say that we need to obviously continue on this issue, but I think we've got a lot of good discussion, but there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of moving pieces, contractual issues. We have a lot of work to do here. But I think we're all in this to make things better, and I think we'll get there. So let's just continue with it and see where it goes.
Trustee Boland?
I still have concerns of what's going to happen after the 21st.
Duly noted. I think we all share those concerns, and henceforth, I think that.
For the safety of our constituents and fire department and fire department staff.
Talking about 27th?
Well, at the 21st, we're losing one.
27th to go down another.
And thinking we're gonna get somebody here in 2 weeks is unrealistic, so. I mean, you'll be lucky if you got somebody here in a month.
I'm feeling like February 1st would be lucky.
So we'll continue to do our due diligence, unbeknownst to some, but it is our direction and purpose to give the best services to the community. Are there any additional discussions to be had with the trustees? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to adjourn. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned at 2:05.
So.